is Charles Duke Tanner, and I was sentenced to a double life sentence for my first arrest for a nonviolent drug offense in 2004. I lost all my appeals, and I was denied clemency by the Obama administration. It took 16 plus years before President Trump granted my clemency and allowed me to go home in 2020. I was a part of a broken and unjust system. And now it hurts me to the core to see the same system going after a former president. This is what blacks been going through since day one. If we allow this to happen to the former president, we can only imagine what's going to happen to the rest of the country. Please stand up now if you have a voice, and let's fight against this. God bless you all.
Hey, welcome to Dino Reacts. The left feels like it has a stranglehold over the black vote. I beg to differ. Let's get after it.
During his time in office, former President Donald Trump signed into law the First Step Act, a reform aimed at fixing federal prison sentencing guidelines, reducing recidivism, and freeing people who had been incarcerated for very lengthy sentences. Ended up freeing about 5,000 people from these outrageous sentences, in the words of former incarcerated actor and self-described militant activist and filmmaker Craig Scott, who wrote in a recent article for Newsweek.
Scott makes the case that the same criminal justice system Trump radically reformed is being used to discredit him. None of U.S. formerly incarcerated persons freed under the First Step Act are blind to that irony. Trump's mugshot only increases his street cred. That's the argument. Craig Scott joins us now to share his story. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me here.
Now, this has been a controversial proposition as a number of conservatives took to Twitter following the mugshot, making the argument that the existence of a presidential mugshot would naturally lead to increased support among Black Americans, the presumption being that Black Americans like mugshots or criminality or find that some kinship in his being indicted for election fraud crimes. So give me the argument as you understand it.
Well, I can understand that, from a cynical standpoint, but from a more, realistic standpoint, the mugshot represents an experience that a lot of disenfranchised Black and brown people here in America have experienced. And it's that common experience that makes Donald Trump relatable. It also focuses the fact that for some reason, the powers that be are after this guy. So all of those things is what are represented in the fact that they've got this mugshot of a former president floating around in the news.
And just for me to touch on that and to really get into that mugshot and how it really affected Black men, is that Donald Trump, we as Black men knew about Donald Trump in the hood. And this end from the Jesse Jacksons to the Mike Tysons. So we knew that he was a part of the community. We knew that he was always using this money to give back in the hood. But when he became president, everybody decided to, just because of the Charlottesville and then the neo-Nazi things, to run with this racist narrative against him. But that's not true. He, with the First Step Act and just simply who he was as a gentleman, we all knew. And he represents to Black men the masculinity that has been taken out of our neighborhoods. So that's why the silent majority like me we're definitely going to go for him, because he's going to give us the opportunity back to lead our neighborhoods again, because our neighborhoods are a complete matriarchy. That's one of the reasons why the silent majority of Black men are going for him against the whole entire First Step Act and being connected to him as a mugshot or as a felon. Me personally, I think it's more about, we recognize who Trump is. We've always known. We've watched the media lie about him, and all of us that supported him were getting talked down to, because when everybody was calling the racist, even in our own communities, that I don't understand how can just 60 years of him supporting Black neighborhoods all of a sudden disappear in 4-year election from 2016. It made no sense to me. But Black men are starting to understand, and by him doing a First Step Act, and nobody's talking about how many Black men he got out of prison. He has our vote. And we're more getting solid in it because we're seeing him getting treated, as this gentleman was saying before, Craig Scott, in a horrible system. We've been treated in this system, and we're seeing it happen to him, and we're shaking our head because that's not supposed to happen.
Is it that, and also the President Joe Biden, the likely opponent of Donald Trump if he is the next nominee, has this history on criminal justice issues of being very punitive, going back to the policies he supported in the 90s that I believe I read your piece had to do with your own incarceration?
Exactly. I mean, this is like the most significant comparison or juxtaposition. Here's the one candidate who was the architect of a law that ended up creating what they call the mass incarceration movement. And then another candidate who literally came into office and systemically reversed that same law.
Boom. He could not have said it any better. I'm going to have to take that and clip that and put that on a short, because black men need to understand a very, very simple difference. You have one president that incarcerated millions and millions of black men. And on the flip side, you have another candidate that literally released them for unfair charges. That needs to be pushed out in the media, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that the Trump campaign understands that this message needs to be pushed out. They need to put it on Fox. Seriously.
So you can't be blind to the fact that these two candidates represent two opposing views when it comes to that particular issue.
How did Donald Trump systemically reverse the crime bill? My understanding is that some of the most insidious parts of the crime bill involve the crack cocaine disparity, which various Democratic presidents have unwound. And I certainly don't want to take any credit away from Donald Trump for the STEP Act, but I am curious whether or not it's really accurate to describe what Donald Trump did with the STEP Act as having systemically reversed the 1994 crime bill in all of its harms.
Let's go.
Well, the best way I think that I can describe it is this, is that when Barack Obama came into office, and many of us expected him to make systemic changes, he didn't do that. What he did, he went by case-by-case basis. I call it the Oprah Winfrey approach. You get a sentence commutation, you get a sentence commutation. So he never dug into any of the actual laws that were creating that disparity.
But I'm sorry, isn't
Trump on the other?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
He made changes to the actual laws themselves so that it will have a more system-wide effect. And so that's why I call it a systemic change, because he literally went into the legislation and changed it where Barack did not want to touch a letter of the crime bill prior to that.
Do you think Donald Trump's history with the First Step Act, something that was supported at the time by a lot of Republicans, although now obviously Donald Trump is being challenged. There are a number of other Republican candidates. I'm not sure exactly where each of them stands on that. I know some of them have expressed a desire to undo the First Step Act. Concerns about crime are starting to crowd some of the criminal justice consensus. Do you think this gives Trump an advantage over other Republicans, that he has this achievement on his record?
Of course. I mean, listen, Trump represents an opposition to, one, the status quo in general, and a rebellion, if you will, against the establishment leadership of the Republican Party. When he was calling for legislative change in this area, listen, he had to drag Mitch McConnell screaming and kicking over that line in order to get him to do it. So he spent a lot of political capital in order to force a lot of his own Republican party members to support this particular bill. So, yes, in doing so, he distinguishes himself from the establishment leadership of his own party.
Right.
What are the kinds of criminal justice reforms that you've heard about from Trump or other GOP candidates in the race right now that you're really looking forward to seeing implemented if one of them becomes president?
I'm going to tell you, I haven't heard any discussion from any of the other candidates about criminal reform. And I'm going to be very frank with you. I'm not looking forward to seeing anything in that area from DeSantis, who they're considering the second, runner-up, if you will. So in this area, Trump has been the only candidate. He's been the only former president who's actually addressed that particular issue square on, and he's made a significant, I consider, radical change in that direction.
As you can see, Trump is really pushing against the Democrats and the Republicans when it comes to getting prison reform for black men. Kicking and screaming, as he said, against Mitch McConnell. So that's letting me know that he's out there really fighting for us, but he's not going to get any of the credit. He's not going to get any of the support from either side. He's all on his own. But that's why, as black men, we have to get out there and get that vote out for Donald Trump, because he's the only one fighting for us. Do not let media confuse you. He is here with us. And just so you know, let's continue on with this topic.
As a formerly incarcerated person, what policies are top in mind to help and people maybe who aren't even in as good a situation as you are, be rehabilitated? We talk about recidivism in general. There's rising crime in some cities, not all cities. It can be painted as overly negative by the media. What do you think, from someone who's gone down this pathway in life and now has a lot to show for oneself, writing and speaking on these issues? What do formerly incarcerated people need so they can be rehabilitated in society without you having to resort to these really punitive long sentences?
Well, outside of course, just like what you just addressed, there has to be a change in the sentences. The sentences have to be attached to punishing the person for the actual crime that they commit. And that's on the sentencing side. On the reentry side, what we need in order to keep recidivism down is the bare necessities. This house that I'm standing in right now, the only reason why I have this house is because my family has helped me and is providing that for me. Had I not had that, I would like to believe that I would still be able to, do positive things, but just that basic necessity of a house, clothing on your back, food, transportation, either organizations or family have to be able to provide that for those of us who are returning home if we want to really see a change in the recidivism rate.
I definitely want to say, man, I'm so proud of you, bro. You know what I'm saying? I can definitely see that you're reformed, that you came through. As a guy who also did some time myself, I understand what it takes, the view, the way people look at you, sometimes to kind of say you find yourself not wanting to hide your record. But I just want to throw out so much love and respect for you, man, for making it through your time, coming out here and being a voice for change and support. You know what I'm saying? Letting people know the real deal about what's going on with us and how we're trying to come through. So, man, my shout out goes to you, bro.
And you spoke to the idea that sentences need to be in line with the actual crime committed. I presume you're alluding to kind of mandatory minimums and those policies which drove a marked increase in the incarcerated population. And I'm curious what you make of the emphasis that so many people who are running in the Republican primary and in the Republican Party, more generally speaking, seem to attribute a rise in crime to lax prosecutors who aren't implementing long enough sentences for folks who are arrested and convicted of crimes. Do you think that that's what's driving crime rates in some cities that are going up?
What's driving crime rates is Joe Biden's terrible economic plan. That's what's driving crime rates.
What's driving crime rates is migrants that we cannot take care of. They're all over the place. They're coming into our neighborhoods, robbing and stealing from us. And then at the same time, while they're evicting people after the whole the rent stimulus, they've been evicting people, and then they're throwing immigrants into the houses of people. So they're replacing American citizens with immigrants. That is what's causing the crime to go up, because you're creating a tension inside an already hotbed. And why would you do that?
Because that's always been what has driven crime rates. This narrative that somehow black and brown people just want to commit crimes because they just want to do that, that is the most racist argument that can be made by either party. And I've seen candidates and individuals from both parties make that sort of argument. The problem is that within our communities, the economic opportunities are limited. And facing those limited economic opportunities, oftentimes crime is the thing that we often end up turning to.
Yep.
If there were more availability of meaningful jobs, meaningful education in those same areas, guess what? Crime will go down.
And just to touch on that point, he said there's the Democrats, and it is a very positive thing that the Democrats took the time to put a heavy push on the empowerment of black women in our community, but you did that at the detriment of our black boys. And when boys are not listened to, we're not girls. We have a different type of energy. When we're not listened to, we lash out. And a lot of men, when they found themselves not encouraged, not being cherished, and like I said, there's too much girl power, sister this, beehive love, and not enough masculinity. Let's push try. Let's be good fathers. You don't see that being pushed. You see the single motherhoods being pushed. So it's a very big necessity in the black community for us to get those initiatives for black men to be better fathers, better brothers, better uncles, better men in society. You know what I'm saying? We need martial arts classes. We need finance classes. All these things in the hood to help black men be able to better take care of our community, so our women don't feel like they have to do it. And if we're better prepared to do it, then we'll take care of our women and take care of our own. And those things I really feel need to be implemented.
So this whole narrative, I reject that all the way.
It's interesting. In particular, there's been some discussion about Vivek Ramaswamy, for example, has advocated for cutting any number of agencies that have historically disproportionately provided opportunities for upward mobility for the black community in particular, especially in an earlier era in American history when there was so much employment discrimination. Government jobs were some of the first jobs that really gave black Americans an opportunity to enter the middle class. And I'm sure, as you know from life and personal experience, jobs as couriers, working for the USPS, things like that have always been significant opportunities for upward mobility for us. What do you make of the choice to say, I want to cut, I think he said 75% of the federal workforce, and the implication of what that means for the employment opportunity?
I would like to hear what he's going to do on the balance. Okay, if you're going to get rid of these, government jobs and positions that many minorities are holding, what are you going to do on the private sector side that's going to now integrate them into the private sector? And if he's not presenting that, then you got to see what he's presenting as what it is. My mother went from social services to employment through a program that basically got her employment in the Social Security agency. So I know what that is, and I know that the improvement that did to our lives. So I'm not going to take a position as if to say, oh, well, yeah, we got to get rid of all of the government jobs. The problem is that we are underrepresented in the private sector.
Yes.
And what is he going to do about that?
Yeah. And basically what he's saying about the private sector is the private sector are jobs that, like, chef, you know what I'm saying? Like, I own my own restaurant. Just owning your own business. That's the private sector. Where you're actually have a product to sell, where you're actually you're putting something out in the world. When you're working for the government, you don't sell anything. It's a government of taking, even if they give you money, they're taking it from taxpayers. No, black men want jobs in our communities. You know what I'm saying? Like back in Black Wall Street, we had bus stations, our own theaters. We want our own community, our own laundromats. Everything that consists of making an economic improvement in the neighborhood, black men want more control over that, because that's been given away. And now we have the Indians. No hate to them, but I'm just saying, in black communities, predominantly black communities, the stores are run by other races. That should be us. And black men want more economic prosperity in the private sector, just like he's saying. And we're not getting that. We're getting held out on business loans. We're getting held out of so much, and they've been giving it to others. So, but if we can get a support for a really good, strong, successful, loyal black men to get into those positions in the private sector, it's going to have a big effect on black men in the whole community. And then we'll have our role models that we need to see, instead of right now a lot of black men looking at Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying? He's become our role model. He's become that masculinity that we seek to bring back to our communities. But we want to do it for ourselves. And if Vivek comes up with a plan to give black men the equity to go into the private sector to make money for ourselves, I am all for that.
So he has a program for that. I've got to be suspicious about what he's proposing.
As you can see, more black men are waking up. Slowly but surely, the message of kind young black men like this gentleman here are going to push around the neighborhoods and open up the narratives and change the conversations and get more black men on board with understanding their own prosperity. And if we can get somebody in MAGA to come and speak directly to our concerns, he will have even more support than you think. If you think that is crazy, look at this clip.
My name is David Hilliard, founding member of the Black Panther Party. I knew Trump when Trump was a college student in New York, and he supported the Black Panther Party. That's how I know Trump.
What kind of person do you think Donald Trump is?
Trump is a person who's a decent man, and he supported the Black Panther Party. That's what I just mentioned to you. He was someone who gave us money, and Trump was a decent guy. Trump's a friend of African Americans, and I knew Trump from the 1960s in New York, where he comes from, and he's a friend to African Americans.
Oh, and now when you say a friend to African American, what do you mean by friend?
I mean he's not a racist. He's not a racist, fascist white man. He supported black people. Owned every brownstone.
Man, you see? Now we're getting support from the Black Panthers. How about that? Slowly but surely, the snail of a movement called Black Male Prosperity is slowly coming in to the public view. And I am very happy to see that if we can get a president behind us, we can make some major change. Y'all worried about the crime. Y'all worried about the fatherlessness. Y'all worried about the lack of marriages and of the abundance of single mothers. Let's give black men power again. Let's put the power back in the black men that want to take over the societies and bring them back into prominence. And I'm completely here to support that. And I think Donald Trump is going to help us get there. So 100%, let's go. And also, if you like my content, like, comment, and subscribe. Please comment down below and help me push this algorithm out and give me more things to talk about. And just like always, chef's kiss. Mwah.